To bring in our panel, Jessica Ramirez, managing attorney of the Immigration Assistance Program for Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Newark, and Elizabeth Wydra, the president of the Constitutional Accountability Center. Good to see both of you.
Thank you.
So we're going to jump right in. Great, I'm glad to have you. Jessica, I'm going to start with you on this one. President's pathway to citizenship, is this a good idea or problematic?
I think it's a good idea. I'm very optimistic that something is going to give for doctors. Even though the Trump administration has gone back and forth and ended the program in September, these are people that at this point have lived most of their lives in this country, that speak more English than their native tongue, and for all sense of purposes, they consider themselves American. They live the American lifestyle. They are law-abiding. They wouldn't have an immigration benefit if they were not law-abiding. So I think that it's definitely a good thing. I think that they're a very sympathetic bunch, and Mr. Trump has, from the beginning, has sympathized and says that he wants to do something for them.
Elizabeth, how do you see it?
Well, I think it's important to remember that this could be a very easy fix. The majority of Americans, including 3 out of 4 Republicans, support allowing Dreamers to stay in this country. And it's not surprising, given that they are integral members of our community, contributing, really being part of the fabric of the American community. But what we have with the Trump framework, and it's always hard to tell exactly what is going to be Trump's position from one day to the next, is really holding hostage these wonderful young people, these Dreamers, in order to cut legal immigration, this family reunification policy that has been derogatorily called chain migration, but for most of the past few decades has just been how immigration works. And for most of us whose families came here as immigrants, we probably came through family reunification policies.
Let's listen to the president on the pathway to citizenship in his own words. Listen.
Over a period of 10 to 12 years, somebody does a great job. They've worked hard. It gives incentive to do a great job, but they've worked hard. They've done terrifically, whether they have a little company or whether they work or whatever they're doing. If they do a great job, I think it's a nice thing to have the incentive of, after a period of years, being able to become a citizen.
All right, Jessica, let me get back to you. So listen, the president, I'll give you pathway to citizenship for nearly 2 million young people in exchange for $25 billion for border security. That's a price tag, by the way, that's substantially more than what Senators Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham considered in their bipartisan bill. Also, how much of the $25 billion is Mexico going to cough up, Jessica?
Well, is he holding them hostage? Is he using DACA recipients as a bargaining tool? Yes. Is he, and he's a businessman, and that's what businessmen do. They exploit and they use in order to get what they want. And I think it is going to be a problematic, but I think everybody's going to have to come in the middle to get what they want and to get something fair to be done.
Compromise? I'll give you this, you give me that?
It is, and that's what's going to have to happen. There has to be a compromise, and I think $25 billion is very hefty. I don't know if $25 billion, I mean, it's not what we want, but we might have to eat some humble pie in order to get DACA and the DACA recipients.
Yeah, and I understand that, but that $25 billion price tag, is that something that some of the president's, critics would say, well, what about Mexico bearing part of that bill, footing part of that bill?
I think Mexico is not going to do that, and I think it is a kick in the gut for a Latina, as myself, to talk about Mexico on the border when there's another border in Canada. It is going to be problematic, but something has to give. There has to be a compromise.
Elizabeth, so as you were saying a moment ago, President Trump wants to adjust the visa lottery system and limit what you're calling, and I don't want to be offensive, the so-called chain migration, so pardon me if that's offensive to you or anyone, to their spouses and their young children. Do you agree with this, or you seem to have a problem with this proposal? Tell me why.
So certainly we have had a policy of family reunification for the past decades that have allowed people to bring in their siblings, their grandparents. It's really a family values kind of policy. And so to limit it and to change these visa requirements really seems targeted at prohibiting certain people from coming to this country. And it seems... Well, so the visa diversity lottery system often makes it seem as if everyone is equally
right, but the president is saying that the deal with the diversity lottery is kind of like, let's pick a number. You get lucky, you get to come to this country, and a lot of bad people, criminals, can, you know, take advantage of that. It's kind of a
which is just simply not true. We haven't had that sort of problem. If someone is in the United States and they commit a crime, then they will be deported. If they have committed a crime, they're not eligible.
And you think that system's really really in place and it's really working well?
I think it is working pretty well. And, you know, I will say that I think this wall, you know, I thought Mexico was supposed to pay for it, first of all, but also the idea that we're going to have a wall on our southern border is really racist. You know, why are we trying to keep black and brown people out of this country while the president says we should welcome more people from Norway?
Well, I mean, Jessica jumped in here because the wall happens to be on the border with Mexico. So, you know, it could have been, that's just the geography. Jessica?
I have to agree.
Well, as Jessica noted, there isn't one on the northern border.
And exactly, I have to agree. It's a kick in the gut, and it is racist. I mean, we're only talking about the Mexican border. What about the Canadian border? Absolutely.
So the president wants the Senate, listen guys and ladies, to deliver legislation following his blueprint by February 5th. That's a 9. Is this going to happen, Elizabeth?
I think it's really hard to say. You know, there are a lot of Democrats who are saying we might be willing to give you some money for the wall as, you know, ransom for taking the Dreamers hostage. But I think this limitation on legal immigration might be a step too far for them. And in fact, the Dreamers themselves have come out saying that this is basically a white supremacist ransom note.
So what's the fix here, guys? I mean, unfortunately, we are talking about a lot of brown people, you know, but what is the fix? That's the reality. So how do you fix it without coming across as targeting a certain demographic? Jessica, excuse me.
I think we fix it by the Democrats are going to have to eat some humble pie. We'll have to give in some billions of dollars for a wall. I think the DACA recipients should be able to stay here and have a pathway to citizenship. And I think that the family reunification system that we have should stay in place.
Elizabeth, you get the final word.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, the majority of Americans favor having the Dreamers here, so pass a Clean Dream Act first, and then think about comprehensive immigration reform as the next step.
Okay.